Kia ora ana tātou irina. Te kamata nei tā tātou mea, kara tātou tāroro, we will stay true or as close as possible to the program. So this is the topic that I will talk about. Stories woven in the sky, Maori oral traditions and protocols. What do we know from the island of Maori? So this is the topic here. 2 weeks ago, someone sent a photo, a shot. There we go. That photo is on the western side of the island of Maori, from a place called Nuka, looking towards Tiringa. Those from Maori, that's the place. So you are actually looking south. If your eyes are good enough, you might see the Southern Cross there, Sirius, and all the other A2 areas. So, I'll talk more about that. Arorangi. Aro is the face. Arorangi, and of course, we're talking about ocean navigation, and what a better face to look for to guide oneself. So Arorangi is the layout. So for the layout for the program, I'll start with number 1. Quite a tour to make moya koto. Numero 2. Then I'll talk about how people arrived onto the island of Maori. So I'll talk about the migration and eventually coming to Maori. And then number 3, then we are on the island of Maori. I'll talk about the geography, the history of the island of Maori. With that, then I'll talk about the cosmology, the kapuanga, or the inuo. How did the inuo, ite anga mai anga ia, irute te kōrero aka toko mana. Numero 5 rira, irute ria tau kapuanga rira, kapura mai ria te A2L. So within the cosmology, we will then begin to understand the celestial realms. Numero 1 rira, and then I'll just summarize the talk today. Koaio. O te etu popongi e akara e taku moe. O nuka a te awauru I te tua pārapu. Ko vaita a te vai toe toe. Ko te mata atua ki mau ke te waka. Ko raumati te pito kāinga. Ko te akatauira o akatoka manawa te ngāti, te tai o ku ngāti tera. Ko pūhara kura te marae. Ko matako tōku metua waine. Ko teriki tōku metua tāne. Ko maara tōku ingoa. Ai yo koko. So you have the translations there. Towards your right, akatauira is the morning star that awakens my sleep. Nuka is the landing passage in the west of the island. Vaita is the cool bathing pool. Te matatua ki Maoke is one of my benchmarks. Raumati is where I was born. When I came to Aotearoa, New Zealand, I found out Raumati was here. Raumati is up north, Raumati is down in Wellington. I asked myself, how could that have been? So that tells about voyaging back and forth. Ngāti te akatauira o akatoko manawa is my tribe, so my tribal affiliation, one of my tribal affiliations is to Ngāti te akatauira o akatoko manawa. Puarakura is the marae, matapoto ku mama, Terry is my father. So talking about those, about toku pamana. So okay, so this is the island of Akatoka Manao. I mentioned about Nuka. Nuka is the westerly passage. Nuka is it's a landing passage as well. But Nuka, Nu means the coconut, Ka is to burn. Nuka. So that area about Nuka is talking about burning. In other words, if you are a foreigner from outside and you see the smoke, it tells you that land is owned by someone. They are the keepers of the fire. Nuka, that's why the fire is there. Once the fire is burning, if you are a foreigner, then you will know someone has owned that land. So we are the keepers of the fire of the west, Nuka. Vaita is it's not a stream. It only fills up with water when there's heavy deluge, and we would gather into that bathing spot. Vaita. Raumati, that's where I was born, on the island of Maori. As I said before, lo and behold, I came here. I found out there was many Raumati here on this land. To the right there, you will see a place called Karatao de Matatua. That is the place really associated with the Waka de Matatua. Even if you look a bit there, if you can see, it mentions the place Oneunga. What some people call here Onehanga. Oneunga is the proper spelling. So Oneunga is associated with the Mauke Ngaputo chief or Taratoa. So this Oneunga there. Even if you notice the name, Teruatoki. Teruatoki is here. Teruatoki, as I understand, is also in the east coast there. So you see these close ties to here and back home. And then you will also see here Tianao Kai. The oral traditions of this land here talks about Kai and his pet whale. There is this place, Ana o Kai, the abode of Kai, or the cave of Kai. Right at the south of the island, Ho'utukawa. Okay, Ho'utukawa, the plants, the tree here. So when the Matatua left the island of Maoke, they replenished with many botanical things, materials. One of the things they brought to this land, amongst many things, is that the Ho'utukawa. That's the place here, Ho'utukawa. Teoneroa. So these are names tied strongly to this place here. So that's where I was born. So when Pei and I were born, and the others, we were born at the time there was no running water. There were no taps. And there was no power. All we had was the kerosene lamp. So it actually gave us a good time to actually see the celestial realm. Because there was no power and no alkaline, then it purified the sky. There was no light pollution. So in such a way that when lying outside the home, we could see the sky so clearly. Almost as if you can reach out and touch the stars. That's how clear it was back then. So we were brought during that era. Rakuipo, there you go. Rakuipo is there. Rakuipo is the marae or tarato. There you go. I'll talk more about that. Rakuipo. Yeah. So this is my tribal affiliation. Ngats the Akatawira. The Akatawira is one of the tribes of Maoke on my father's side. So this ceremony is being conducted under the mana of Ngats the Akatawira. Puarakura is the marae associated with my father. This here is the marae. When I first came to this land, they said, come, we go to the marae. Oh, We hardly go to the marae in Maori. And then we went to this place outside. I asked, where's the marae? There's the wharenui. I said, oh, this is not a marae. In Cook Island understanding, marae is not a house. It's a space hardly visited unless there's something important like the investiture of a paramount chief. That's when we go there. Otherwise, when you go by yourself through the bush, you avoid the marae. If you know it's over there, you want to go this way and find it. So that's the sanctity. That's how sacred the marae is to us in the Cook Islands. So there's the marae there. That's during the investiture of the current Te Awariki, Anthony Turaki, onto the title of Te Awariki. O te toko mama, on my mother's side, o toko wowo waine, toko wowo tāne, no inua manu mai, o ta warau tō nei mo. That's my grandfather on my mother's side. Kotoko papa te, this is my mother here. On the far right there is Auntie Rai. Auntie Rai, do you like it? Yeah, so Auntie Rai, that's Auntie Rai's mom. And in the middle there, that's my sister Puna. So then I moved to number 2. So I always ask myself, where did the people of Maori come from? You ask your elders, they said, from Awaiki. And beyond Awaiki, it's all in the dark. So I didn't know beyond that. So I will talk about that. Migration of modern humans. So here's a map here of part of the world. So you see there, Te Moana Nui o Kiwa, in Cook Island Maori, it's Ho, not A, and it's the V, not the wobbly. Te Moana Nui o Kiwa. So the biggest ocean space on Earth, okay, the ocean is Te Moana Nui o Kiwa. Starting from my far left, the continent of Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, and to your far right there, North and South America. Long time ago, at a time before time, Antarctica, Australia, Aotearoa, New Zealand, they were joined together. And then over time, Ruamoko, Papatuanuku became unsettled and started to break away. So these are the breakaway. The evidence is in the geology, also in the fossil records. Dinosaurs, similar dinosaur materials are to be found here, there, and also the pounamu, the greenstone, which only occurred here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Also New Caledonia. There, New Caledonia is here. So Aotearoa, New Zealand, New Caledonia was actually joined to Aotearoa, New Zealand in a time before time. That's why in this part of our earth, world, Aotearoa and New Caledonia have the gifts of pounamu, greenstone. So that's it. So then, in Te Moana Nui o Kiwa, 5,000 years ago, especially where we are in Central Polynesia, there were no humans there 5,000 years ago. So we ask, where did people then come from? We'll move on. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, originated in Africa. So there were 2 pathways of migration out of Africa. From Africa, East Africa, one pathway was up north. Before, at that time, there were no, over here is the Sahara Desert today, but it wasn't then. It was all green, lush, forested area back then. So from East Africa up to Egypt. This is one pathway. Egypt across here, over here, today Israel. And in this region here, Mesopotamia. Meso means in the middle. Potamia means the rivers. So it's the land between the two rivers. The two rivers are the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. Okay. So this very ancient land here. So the journey continued of modern humans towards east, out into Asia. But I'll just follow Totatore. So from Asia here, other pathways were taken, but I shall just talk about our here. And so then I'll talk about the first part of the Moana to be settled. So I'll move on. So this here is the first part of this big ocean to be settled by humans. People were already in Africa, Australia, 65,000 years ago. So these islands here, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, the Philippines, they are old land. Very, very old land. The settlement of people there was much, much earlier than that potato in the ocean. I'll leave that. So the first settlement then took place in an ancient land called Sunda and Sahul. This is a supercontinent. What happened was the settlement took place during the last ice age. The ice age took place about 2.6 million years ago to as recent as 12,000 years ago. Okay. Now, during that last ice age, because it was so cold, such that much of the water on Earth was locked in ice, so it lowered the sea level at places to about 100 meters. So those frozen waters were deposited in the North Pole, in the glaciers, and built up. So it really lowered the sea levels to such a way that it exposed this ancient land. So people were actually able to walk from Asia, Thailand, walk on dry land, all to Borneo. And in fact, little water crossing right to Sahul. You might recognize that Sahul is modern day Australia. And you will not see Tasmania because of the lowered sea level. They were joined together. Papua New Guinea, they were joined together. So these are the first people to come into the Moana. So over thousands and thousands of years, because of these closed water gaps here, people then experimented in sea voyaging. Ocean rafts, bamboo rafts, dug out. So this essence of actually dealing with the ocean, sailing here and there, happened here. Sulawesi, Halmahera, that is the nursery of voyaging. It all began here, in this region here. So much, much later then, of course, as the climate became warmer, the ice melted and then it reached modern day sea levels. And so these islands then became separated. So this is how we see it today. After the melting of all that seawater, Tasmania became separated from the main Australia land. Papua New Guinea became separated. And all these now became ocean. So that was the first settlement. Then coming here, Tato, for the people of the Cook Islands, now I'm going to talk of the coming of people into the Cook Islands, into Polynesia. And that journey was a recent journey, very recent indeed, about 5,000 years ago. So about that time, a totally different group of people to those that settled here first. The earlier people to settle here had stronger complexion, darker skin. But this group that came much later on is a totally different group. Straighter hair, lighter skin, and that journey then began from somewhere over here in Taiwan or somewhere in Southeast Asia there. So this group of people moved from Taiwan down to the Philippines. As I said before, the essence of voyaging or sea-going was sort of established in this Sulawesi region here. So there has already been sailing. So that enabled these groups of people to move, becoming Taiwan, down through the Philippines, just north of Papua New Guinea, places such as New Britain and New Ireland, as well as the Bismarck archipelago. So as these groups moved, of course they would have used the stars, the birds, and all these phenomena to guide them. But not really, because these places are within sight. As they sail, you can see the mountain of the next land. So really, that blue water navigation was not really established then, because you are sailing within sight of land. So as these groups of people move here, Bismarck archipelago here, right through the Melanesian island, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, and out to Fiji. Fiji is the gateway into Polynesia. From Fiji, then out to Tonga, and then to Samoa. Now, this group of people that traveled, they were horticulturalists. In other words, they know how to look after plants. They grew tapa making. They grew the cover plants. They grew yam, sugar cane. So these are things that were known by these groups of people. They also looked after animals. They knew how to tend to the jungle fowl, the moor, the pigs, the kuri, the dogs, and also the kioi. So these groups moved here all the way to Samoa. In Samoa, there appeared to have been a pause of almost up to 1,000 years of staying. But continuing movement back to Fiji and all that happened. But not towards the east. It was almost about 1,000 years of pause. Then the next journey took place. So from Samoa, two lines of thoughts from Samoa straight to Inua Enana. Inua Enana is the Marquesas, or down through the Cook Islands. Out to Inua Enana, the Marquesas. So this is where I work. This is where I have. So COVID has not allowed me to go back to Nukuiwa we do archaeological work there. So from the Marquesas, groups split. One group split and went up north to settle this land here, to today become Hawaiians. Also from the Marquesas, also from Tahiti. From Tahiti, there's an east journey from Tahiti down through Mangareva, Rikitea, and Akamotu. From there, right then to Rapa Nui. From Rapa Nui, all the way to South America. From South America, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador. Gifts were obtained from there. What I mean by that is kumara. Kumara, the ue, the calabash, and other plants. They were then brought back, following the currents up here, back to Nukuhiva, the Marquesas, and then introduced into Polynesia here. So from Tahiti here to the Cook Islands, 1,000 years ago or more, then the final push took place from the Cook Islands, if not from the Austral Islands, Ra'iwawae, Tubuai, Rapa, Rimatara, Rurutu. So these were the islands over here. So it's either from those islands, then the final push took place. So with that, the settlement of this earth, by sailing anyway, became complete. So if you look carefully here, in fact, Aotearoa New Zealand is the last habitable part of our Earth to be settled by humans. Because if you look there, it makes sense. Aotearoa is isolated. The next thing, if you go further down, is right to the bottom of the Earth, Antarctica. So Aotearoa is so isolated, and that's why it became to be the last part of the Earth to be settled. Because if you look carefully at the Earth, Aotearoa is almost right here. Aotearoa sits at the edge of the world, if there was such thing as an edge. So then, because Aotearoa is the last place to be settled, then I call it, Aotearoa is the Potiki. Our journey from Africa is the Tuakana. Tuakana over there, the Potiki over here. It's the last born, the last place to be settled. So, so who are these people that moved from Taiwan? We ask ourselves. In archaeology, anthropology, they use these terms, but there's a proper term, I think. But anyway, these were people that originally came from Taiwan or near areas. They were highly mobile sea explorers. They grew plants and they looked after animals. They fished. But most importantly, they practiced a special kind of pottery. This one here. This is the lapita pottery. What you will see there, then, one of the ideas is that people in that place was actually looking in the sky and visualizing constellations, people, faces, or images, and transferring it onto the lapita pottery here. Very important. The lapita pottery is important to trace the movement. It's very unique. It's unique in such that to obtain the patterns, they were imprinted with a dentate tool. Dentate means with a tooth, to do with a tooth. In other words, there's a tooth implement, almost like this, or like this, to obtain those designs here. What's important is that there was also the roulette. A roulette is a disc found in archaeology. It's like this, a bamboo or wooden disc with designs. So to get the patterns here, while the pottery was still soft, not having been fired, so the roulette is rolled. It's rolled along, leaving those distinctive patterns. So two things quite distinctive about the lapita pottery. A dentate tool. This is not this one here, but you can see then you're leading the idea about body ornamentation, hat from that. The roulette. So in the Bismarck archipelago, you see these things to do with the celestial realm being portrayed on iconography. Here we go. If you look carefully there, you might see issues around the Milky Way. And you also see here, these people holding hands. Okay, these people holding hands, and you will also see so many other things in there. And it's actually thought to encompass what the ancient people saw of the sky and portrayed it somehow onto a canvas, which may well have been onto the pottery. So who are these people? These people are called the children of Maori, because they were the ones that first discovered the lands. They saw the lands, they fished the lands from the ocean, Tamarikia Maori. But more importantly, they were called Tama Iria Moe. Tama is child or children. Iri is to weave, firi, to weave. Moe is the dream. So they are the dream weavers. They had a dream to better themselves, to go, to find other places. So there was a dream. Tama Iria Moe, the dream weavers. So today, who are they today? Today, they are the Tamariki of the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea. These are those descendants today. They are the children of the Federated States of Micronesia. So to tie up with our ocean voyaging, for example, the islands of Satawal, Pulawat, Kosrae, Guam, and all those Micronesian islands. Ratote. Of course, the children of Tuvalu, the Cook Islands, Aotearoa, of course, here, Tonga Samoa. So these groups of people here today, they are the children, they are the descendants of those early Tama Idiamo, the Greenwood. Why did they move? Well, we really don't know. Perhaps curiosity, adventure, resource shortage, overpopulation, all of these things. Climate change, of course. So how did they do it? And that's the reason why we are here today. Okay, so we know that they traveled. We know they traveled not by aeroplane. They traveled by waka. Over here you see, that is the earliest waka or waka pieces ever found in Oceania. This is from the island of Wahine. On my father's side is also from Wahine. That's in a place called Vaitotia, to the west part of Wahine. There was an excavation done in 1972 by Oshi Sinoto. So what they found, what was happening was that they were digging this place to build a hotel. Lo and behold, the back hole opened up the ground and revealed a lot of things. Things like the patu. Okay, the patu that you see here, the shape of the patu out there, found from there. Necklaces, whale tooth ornaments. One of them was then the plank of an ocean-going waka. That's the earliest one. And a mast, about 10-meter mast, and a huge ocean-going paddle uncovered from here. So what happened was, it's thought that there was a mighty tsunami that struck the coast. So it took everything from the coast inland into a swamp, and that's where this place is. We also know that they went by canoes, because we have rock art that depicts all these. We also know they traveled here by waka. This is the earliest known waka found here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. That's found from Anaweka. Anaweka is in Tasman, the northern part of the South Island, from a place called Anaweka. So this is the earliest one. If you look carefully, you might see a holu, a turtle, engraved on one of the keys there. So the turtle is very, very important. Turtle really do not frequent the waters of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So that idea about turtle is actually from beyond. In other words, from somewhere in the ocean, out of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So brought over here. The timber is made out of matai, so you don't need to wonder, it's actually made here. It's made out of matai wood. Yeah, very important. So that's the earliest waka found here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So how did they find their way on the ocean? Pei will talk more about that. Now, there was a writing about someone. When the early navigators arrived here, the people of the Pacific asked, "Oh, how did you find your way on the ocean?" Oh, they said, "We used this, a map." And the people were surprised. "You used that?" They were looking, "How could you do that?" And one of the comments was that, "Oh, as it's made out of paper, what happens if it's pour water on it? Oh, then it will dissolve. What about a lighter? If you put a lighter, then it burns." Then the people said, "The map we use it, you can't wet it, you can't burn it, and it is the biggest map on earth, and that map is the night sky, and it's been there for the last 1.4 billion years. Absolutely. Stars might explode or be born, but basically it's the same one, depending on the seasons. Yeah. But it has remained as it was for those long time ago." Okay, so birds we use. Toro, Toro, the captain of the Matatu Waka, Toro associated with the island of Maori. Toro, just like the royal albatross that flies, migrates all over the place. So it was Toro. Toro from Maori, he sailed all the way to the Marquesas, even up to Hawaii, and probably even to Aotearoa, New Zealand earlier, and even to the Americas. So that's a Toro, Kakaia, Ngoio, Kota. Nasty bird, this one, Kota. Very lazy bird. What it does, it waits for the Kakaia to go out fishing, and once the belly is full, then the Kota will come around the back, bite the tail further, and shake it in the air, so that the fish will be released. As soon as the fish falls from up high, then the Kota will swoop down, poof. And that's the nature of the Kota. Frigate bird. Clouds, of course, debris. Again, one of the most important things is vegetation. To early navigators, once they see branches, green material in the ocean, it's a message from the gods. Because the plants are from the realm of Tane. Imagine on a rainy day, the water washed down the broken trees and flooding take it out into the ocean. So the navigators, once they see this out in the ocean, it's a message from the gods telling the land is just close. So this, it's pointless saying all this without support or evidence. Whether it's scientific evidence or the tato oral traditions. So I'll go on to that now. The first evidence then I look at is botany, botanics. Botany is the study of, scientific study of plants. Now, as people moved from Taiwan, Southeast Asia, they took useful plants. They brought the taro. The taro originated in Papua New Guinea. That's the homeland of taro. They brought to your far right there the koi, the bamboo. The bamboo originated, the fossil records originated in China. Over here, the cover plant, the aute for tapa making. So these are the only ones from the Americas, kumara and the ue. Now these plants were not on the islands prior to the arrival of humans. They were never here before humans. They only appeared in the archaeological record of all of Polynesia really after the arrival of humans. That means they were not there naturally. They were actually introduced. And their homeland, most of their homeland is actually in Southeast Asia. And that's how we know that Polynesian people actually came from that way. Next one. Okay, the yam. Yam was introduced to Aotearoa. The cover plant, yes, the aute was introduced here before the Europeans arrived here. The to, the sugar cane, we didn't have any toothbrush back in Moke. This is what we brush our teeth with. Very fibrous. It just goes through your teeth and clean everything. Breadfruit, the koro, originate from Southeast Asia. Found right throughout the Pacific, not here. And of course, the plantain, the maker. So all these are of Southeast Asian origins. As they were found right throughout the Pacific and some down here, we know that's where these people come from. Commensals. Commensals means to eat at my table. Who is it that eats at your table? The rat, the kiore, eats after your scraps. So one of those animals introduced was then the kiore, the rat. The mo, the chicken, very important other than its food value, but also its feathers for decoration. But it's an alarm clock. Number one alarm clock. 2 a.m. in the morning in Moke, it would crow. As soon as it crows, we know it's 2 o'clock. Absolutely. At 3 o'clock, it will crow, then we know the turtles have laid their eggs. So right on the spot, 2, 3, 4, 5, it crows. That's our time clock, the chicken. Of course, the puaka, the pig, and the kuri, the dog. So it was only these two here that it made it alive to Aotearoa New Zealand, these two. The language, we have the language in evidence. Because if you look at the counting here, what Maori here, tatau mai tatou, let's all count in Maori of this land from 1 to 5. Go!
Tari, rua, toru, wha, lima.
Let's look at the closeness to the Cook Islands, if you can see. Let's all count in Cook Island Maori 1 to 5. Go!
Tari, rua, toru, a, lima.
Now let's go to Samoa 1 to 5. Go!
Tasi, rua, toru, wha, lima.
Tuvalu, go! Tasi,
Rua, toru, wha, lima.
So you can still see the cognate similarities. But let me take you to Taiwan. Taiwan is one of the ancient tribes of Taiwan today. And the Austronesian language, which the language we speak, the Maori language, the Cook Island Maori language, they all belong to the group of languages called Austronesians, and their origins are from Taiwan. Because if you look at the Taiwan, for one, it's Ita. If you reverse the Cook Island or the Maori, it's the same thing. Ita, Tai, Tai. And what's importantly, if you look at number 5, it's Lima all the way from Aotearoa all the way to Taiwan. So it's showing you the similarities. Even the words for the mata, for the eyes, all same from Aotearoa all the way back to Taiwan. So these languages all originate from Austronesia, which is somewhere in Taiwan. That's pointing to the direction that of the coming. What's most important is the hira tangata. Hira tangata is the DNA. That's the Cook Island Maori word for the DNA. It's your hira tangata. It's the genome. So within all of us is actually I won't talk more about that. I'm not a geneticist, so I'll leave it over there. Yeah. But so here we go. The genetic trail. As people moved from Taiwan to islands, people died. People were born. People remained behind, and people continued. It's just like walking on the beach. As you walk, you leave a set of footprints. It's the same thing. So as people moved, they left a sort of a footprint of their DNA. So the genetic studies then suggest it was all from there elsewhere. So then I'm going to talk about Maori. Now people has arrived in Maori, in the Cook Islands. So here we go. The Cook Islands right somewhere in central there. 15 islands in the Cook Islands today, but not in the past. Other islands have decided to go back into the Kopu of the morning, have become submerged. But for today, 15 islands, right from the top there, Maara Maeva, Rakahanga, Maniki, sister islands. Te Urutoatu Puka Puka Nassau, right to the west. Subaro, Pamati, Aitutaki, Manuai, Takute, Mitiaro, Ati, Maoke, Rarotonga. And of course, Mangai right down to the south, closer to Aotearoa, New Zealand, than any other islands in the Cook. So, the ancient name of Maoke is Akatoka Manawa. It came about when Uke, the founder of the island, arrived on that land. He laid down his heart and rested. So Akatoka Manawa, the place where I lie down and rest. That's what Akatoka Manawa. Then shortly thereafter, the island took another name, Mauke, after Uke having bathed from the saltiness of the ocean. When he bathed, then his body became cleansed from the punga mitsu, from the saltiness. So Mauke. The other name, Te Rai of the Pau. Te Rai is the temple here. The Pau is your drum. Te rai o te pau, given by the ancestor Ironui Mawata. Takitumu, Pa'ariki, it's that lineage here. So those are the three names. As I mentioned, I was born on this island here. I left the island at 13 years. So for my first 13 years, I never saw any other island. The only island I saw other than Maori is one in space. That's the only islands that I saw at 13 years old. If you can see here, Maori is the easternmost island in the Cooks. Maori is right to the east. That means for us in the Cook Islands, as Maori is the easternmost, Maori is the first island to be blessed by the glory of Ra, of sun. So in Maori oral tradition, we awaken the sun. We pull the sun from the beyond every morning, and then we send it like Maui across the sky to Pukapuka in the west, to put it to sleep. So for Maori, we are the awakeners of the sun. Pukapuka, they are the sleepers of the sun because they are in the west. So just geological ages. Mangaya is the Tuakana, the oldest island in the Cook Islands, only about 19.5 million years young, followed by Nukuro, Mitiaro, followed by Aitutaki, until Maoke is a middle child. Rarotonga is the youngest. These islands are raised coral islands. If you've seen the island, you will see around the outside of the island is a fortress. It's been pushed up, it's been raised somehow. For Maoke Mitiaro, Mangaya, we give thanks to Rarotonga. Rarotonga is only a baby, 2.5 million years young. So when Rarotonga was born, erupted, because of its great weight, it bowed the crust of the earth, because as it landed, it bowed its massive weight, bowed the crust, so that it's like a seesaw. Then on the other side of the crust, then it pushed those islands. That's how those islands became raised as we see here today. It's due to the mass weight of Rarotonga. So we give thanks to Rarotonga for pushing Maoke Mitiaro Mangaya, up higher. And of course, if you put a diagram of Maoke together like so, it's like an asteroid from space, spinning in space. Maoke is a raised coral island, 18.4 kilometers, it's not large. In 2019-2020, I was in Maoke, 277, the number of people. Let's look at pigs and goats. The same year, 1,001 pigs and goats. There's more goats than pigs on the island of Maui. So the status is there are more pigs and goats than humans on Maui. That's 2019. So the story of Maui is that archaeologically, Maui would have been settled around about, or discovered around about 600 to 1000 AD. By no one else but Tangata Maori, or those early people. And Maoke has two phases of finding. Tangaroa Nui was the discoverer during an first was an exploration journey, it's not a settlement. So Tangaroa Nui traveled from Hawaii and saw the land, observed the land, looked for its resources, and then mapped the star positions of the land, and then went back to Hawaii. After that, then the settlement phase that took place. That's when the women, the pigs and everything took place, and that was Uke, his son. He came on his waka, Papai Moana, and in our oral traditions, 300 people came on that waka. That's what the quarter said. 380 people, and his taunga was Nukutaro Awaiki, and his matakite or his navigator or tangata orora was Matake no. So these things are known. the three names of Maori. Maori in 1901, this is the landing passage. Not much of a passage, there's no opening. It's just what you see here. So they would surf the boat to load the cargo and back. So 1901, this is what you see of the landing passage. Today, the same place is that. So look at what they've done. They've blasted the reef to allow vessels to go. That's exactly the same place. Here today, 1901, these people are waiting to load oranges, cargo onto the island. That's where it is. Today, that's what happened. An aerial shot. Now, I move on to the cosmology. Now that people are okay, there. Now let's look at the cosmology, the creation stories. You might notice this, the Toratara, and you see the Paikea here. The Paikea are the crabs. So, okay, highly strongly related to the story of Paikea and Ngati Porou coming to this land here from out. So the corridor of Maoke, it's a long cosmology, but I'll just recite up to here. So the cosmology of Maoke goes like this. Akiu, no. Nate mamau, nate atea. E atea ua, e pūrewa mutua kore. Rei pō mai e pō kore kore. Pō kore kore te rua e pō kore kore te tō. Pō kore kore puta mai ko io te atua nui mana tēne. Ko io te atua maita I tāranga. Ko io te atua nui te rangitu. Ko io nui te atua te ora. Ko io te atua mana rau. Mana mārau rau. I'll leave it up to there and then I'll just focus. So part of that cosmology, I've enlarged it here. Io te atua mana tēne. Puta mai, ngā tama e tini e mano. That's referring to the hundreds, to the thousands of the celestial elements. There you go. Maoke celestial elements, we'll look at that. Puta mai rote ia urupo. Urupo is the night sentinel. Uruao is the day sentinel. From Urupo to Uruao, we're born Marama and Ra. We're born Po and now. We're born Opatetum, who took as wife, Atearani. And from them came Ngatinia, the pantheon of gods. Tale, Romo, Tangara, Ulu, Rakamamo, the god of the winds, Ruamo, Rutokorang, Tutawake, and so on. This is the market. And now I'm going to look at some stories woven in this. I deliberately blanked some of these because that's the purpose for us today. I didn't want to show you the Maori names of the stars here, for Maori anyway. So there's so many. Let me just start from the top. You have the top here, Te Ingopapa, Te Ra, Te Rantua Nuku, and you have Venus here. I blanked out the Maori version. The Maori. You have Venus here, Scorpio, Milky Way, Lisha, Scorpio, Pleiades, Aldebaran, Polaris, Altair, Canopus, Antares. You can see here the blue, the Maori ones. Jupiter, Orion's belt, Pleiades, Night Sentinel. The eclipse. Also, we have names for the eclipse. When I say we, but also in other islands in the coast. Ta'akura, Saturn, Akerna, Arcturus, Spica, the big square, the 3 pointers. Mercury, Saturn, I'm repeating some of them. This one, I purposefully left this one. This one is called Tuatau or Terongo. In Maputo, when a paramount chief or someone high passes away, the shooting star will fly. In Moke it's called Tuatau and also Terongo. So it's a crimson shooting star indicating the passing away of a paramount chief. So the star would fly from a place in Maoke out to Rakuipo, to Taratoa's Marae, and then out to the Marae Orongo, which is in the north part of the island, and then out into space and shatters. So when that takes place, Maoke will know that someone important is going to pass. So it's Te Rongo or Tuatau Maoke. So this one here, the Rua Matangi, this one is from the work of Reverend Wyatt Gill. When David Lewis copied this, he did not acknowledge where it came from. So he just wrote it there. That was actually from Maya. Maya, just before Gill was in Maya, he was also in Maoke. So I'm still trying to figure out where he obtained it, but it's from Maoke, from Maya. But most of his writings from Maya. So this is really to acknowledge the wind quarters that David Lewis used, which he did not acknowledge. That actually comes from the Pamitua Marama in Maya, Omema or Robima. So these are the Pamitua Maya that gave it to Reverend Wyatt Gill. Wyatt Gill did display this. So Maoke has their version. Amu Ruamatangi. Amu is the ballad or the chant. Amu Ruamatangi means the ballad or the chant of the wind quarters. It mentioned about Akarua. Akarua in Maoke is the north. Amarangai is the east. Or one of those names anyway. Tongatai means the main south. And Parapu is the west. Anjira, kamu tatatom. We are going to recite the chant of the Ruamatang. Namai. So yeah. So this Hamu reciting the winds was taken from Maoke's 1870 Arikore, from Maoke 1870. This one is taken from there. It talks about Ematangie, Earua Tuau, Tukuatu, Kaopimai, and so on. So it is honoring the winds, the Gumatang. So the chant goes, that followed by that whole body. Then it comes back to this, followed by that whole body. Here, so that's how it goes. Again, it's just honoring the winds, for which if they were not there, we wouldn't be able to breathe.
Matangie, Earua Tuau, Tukua Tukoi, Aoki Maie, Warinere Tukua, Te Tama, Aoki Maia, Maria, Matangie, Earua Tuau, Tukua Tukoi, Aoki Maie, Warinere Tukua, Te Tama, Aoki Maia, mai ake.
Maara kuau e matangi e.
E aru atu au tuku atu koe. A o ki mai e. Warire rire tuku ake te tama. A o ki mai ake.
Maru au e matangi e.
E aru atu au tuku atu koe. A o ki mai e. Warire rire tuku ake te tama. A o ki mai ake.
Matangi au e matangi e.
E aru atu au tuku atu koe. A o ki mai e. Warire rire tuku ake te tama. A o ki mai ake.
Matangi au e matangi e.
E aru atu au tuku atu koe. A o ki mai e. Warire rire tuku ake te tama. A o ki mai ake.
Maara kuau e matangi e.
E aru atu au tuku atu koe. A o ki mai e. Warire rire tuku ake te tama. A o ki mai ake.
Thank you very much. It was 2 years ago when the COVID struck, we last rehearsed. So apologies for the beauty and the way it came to you. So this Amuru Matangi is very well known on the island of Maori. So not only the stars, but the wind quarters are a gift to the people, to Maori as well. So I've come to the end. Ko is the mist. So that's why it's called akakoko, to demystify. Akakoko, so I'm going to summarize. So our journey as modern humans began in Africa 200,000 years ago. It was from there Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa all the way to Asia, past Mesopotamia, Asia. But for us, the first part of the ocean to be settled was then Australia. What's Australia today? And that was during the last ice age, a cold time when much of the water of this earth was locked in ice, which lowered the sea level. So these are the first place to be settled. Then much later, 6,000 years ago, in fact very recent, then a totally different group of people migrated from somewhere, Taiwan or Southeast Asia, all the way down to the Philippines, New Ireland, New Britain, Bismarck Archipelago, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, and then out to Fiji, gateway into the east. Fiji, Tonga, from Tonga to Samoa. Samoa, there was a pause of almost about 1,000 years before the next journey took place east. That's out to Inua Erana, the Marquesas, Tahiti, the Cook Islands. From the Marquesas, groups moved up north to become Hawaiians. From the Marquesas, Tahiti groups moved east through Mangareva, Rikitea, out to Rapanui, out to the Americas. Picked up some gifts from there, Kumara, Calabash, and other things. Brought it back via the Marquesas down into central Polynesia. Then from the Cook Islands, Tahiti, or Tuhapai, Rurutu, Rimatara, Tupuai, Rapa. Then from that general area, then a push southwest took place to settle this land here. So in that, Aotearoa is the last place to be settled by humans, and so they are the Portuguese, the last place. It's because so much isolated. The next closest big land is Antarctica. So Aotearoa is sitting almost at the edge of the world. So with that concludes Tapuarara. So with that, I'd like to say, Mita Kinui, Ke Botu Katotoa, Obianga. questions, this is your opportunity. 15 minutes. So, let's go to the next photo.
Presentation, dengan dia tak. Iru yang nak berjumpa ya, iru yang itu main untuk itu. Ang unilupi. Dia pun ni lah dia rai, nang dia nak. Kita tak tempe, video kita. Dia mana? Kita memang itu medium dia. Ibu tak mari nak dia tu, kita tu yang patut turun dan kita biar terus. Iru yang media dia. Jika time di rumah ye tak ke apa orang Indonesia barat. Ia apa itu rumah. Mungkin dia coaching anak apa ya coaching kalian tak. Ya itu ke where did the difference of race and what times actually difference. Tu dia. Pero we have the takang taong rumah ini. The Marama Maeva tu. Ya ai di rumah ini, ya apa ai di rumah ini cuke ang o te kokutang ta. Combination, micronation and selection. Ya apa itu rumah. Betapa tu kita rata tu no Afrika Maeva tak apa ya. Kalau Ichi te betapa tu rumah ya, komunikasi tu. Iya kape era mo may cuke o tang. Kaya kalau udah ada cuke ke tang ada dia buku, mata ke cuke ra.
Thank you very much. So the question is, when and how did differentiation took place? When did the concept of being Micronesian came about? When did it become Polynesian, and when did it become Melanesian? So when did that take place? So the concept of these Micronesia, Polynesia, that's a divisive ploy by the colonial powers to separate us. So it's no good if we all work together. It will be harder to dominate if we all actually work together. So by actually deciding, okay, based on your outlook, we'll call you Micronesian Polynesians. So that's one of the colonizing agenda of ploy to separate, to make us believe that we are separated. The ocean does not separate us. The ocean joins us. That's what the ocean is. It's actually joining us. It's not separating us. That part there is, some people call it the blue continent. So blue continent is but where people live. So further, so as people move through here, time and space separated. Isolation is one of those things. As people moved here, they became remain in the realm of Micronesia, for example. So they became isolated from those that continued. So the language took a slight turn, and they also saw their environment, new things in their environment. So they created stories to suit their new environment. So isolation is one of those things. The other thing is the mutation, but that's another thing. So isolation, being separated from one group, and their independent changes over time. That's one of the things that played a part on the separation of languages. But yet there are key ingredients that still remain. The kuru, the breadfruit, is still the same word. Kuru all right throughout. Only in the Marquesas, it's not a kuru. It's the same word in Tonga. It's mai. So isolation is one of those things. Isolation and colonization.
The two groups, like coming from Samoa and places, becoming the colonies. But when you look at the old names, like all the Manawa and the modern names, When you have a look at all the Eastern Polynesian names, they're actually all names that came on, most of them came on Samoa and Puna.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned, so that's the but like the water does not only flow this way. Could it have come from the Cook Islands the other way? That's another thing to ponder. So he's saying that it must have come this way. Waters also flow the other way. Could it have then come from that way? Or from this way? So I'm just opening that. So, but thank you, yeah. But that's the general idea from west to east.
I have my own hypothesis and my own thinking. I mean, we are all open to thinking. If that map was turned a little bit more, where you can see South America, and my hypothesis is that we actually originated from there, the Polynesians, from South America. When you look at Asia, the distance from Asia to us is longer than when it's from South America to us. It's just my way of thinking, but like Hawaii, it's closer to North America than South America. But Maara has taken me under his wing, and I've actually done a lot of research now after him and I had talked. Because Kumara was found in Malaya. And now, Kumara came from South America. And there was also a plant that, when I went back to Malaya, there was a tree tomato plant. And through research, we found that tree tomato only grows in South America. So, why would I go all the way to Asia when I'm more closer to South America? And now, doing a lot of my research now Rapa Nui has got no more trees. And Rapa Nui, what's called the naval Te Pito Enu. Now, there was a big battle on Rapa Nui and everybody took off. So my hypothesis is that that's why there's no more trees there, because they cut the trees down and make their walk and way. And where would they go? Towards the Tuamotus. And Maara was saying about the Ice Age. The Bible was talking about Noah's time. So when the islands were, when the water was lower, Maara was talking about the level of the water was lower. There were a lot, when you look at South America on the maps, there were a lot of shallow areas around South America. The islands must have been, some islands must have been around there. And like Maara was saying, the people were down the bottom of the hill, they were closer to the water, but when the water rose, the tip of the mountain started to move further apart. Now, before the water level, I could have just paddled across to the other island. But as the water came up, it got further apart. But I knew exactly it's on that side, or it's on that side. And that's how we came to think, okay, if they're there, if the sun rises from that side, it sits that side, and that's where the time is. Just my hypothesis, just my thinking. But I'm happy that this workshop has been worked out, so we can come and listen to our brother over there to tell us otherwise. And thank you very much, Mark. I know you and I will always be divided about this.
Can I have a second, please? Yeah. You know, I love what the brother was saying. But the thing is, but if you say in Samoan, Karaoe pa Samoa, then you speak Samoan. In mine, Karaoe, to speak in Samoan.
Absolutely. Let me, thank you very much. So, he's my toko ayano. We work a lot from Tuareka, but also community work. He's one that I rely heavily on. So So we share a lot of knowledges. Our recent knowledge that we've been talking about is Terangi Mato. Terangi Mato also came to this land. This is the original one, but that's another time. So, like what Ngā was saying, yeah, I'll come to the Kumara. So, out of the Americas up to today, the only evidence of of Kumara being found is only in Maya, never else in the Marquesas or whatever. But it doesn't mean that it did not happen in Rarotonga or the Marquesas. It's just that it has not been found. That's what it is. But for now, the earliest evidence of Kumara outside the Americas was found in Malaya. So we also know some traditions over here of people being sent back to get the Kumara. Based on that, so Ngā and I said they would have gone back to Malaya. And Paul over here, we spoke a lot about why would they go all the way back to the Marquesas when the Kumara is closer to Malaya? On that logic, so the return journey, based on what we know now, they went back to Malaya to collect the absolutely, because as we know now, that's the earliest evidence outside the Americas right now. So, me te kena nui, kare tu ubianga.
Yes, bro. I got the first cousin to our Māori Parau, whanau Apanu, and they got a tribe there called Māori, and we know which Māori is the one tribe in Māori.
So, yeah, that's one of the tribes in Malaya. I think much time there. We'll leave that for another time. Kare tu ubianga ere tu ere. We like on it?
Just in 2009, I traveled to a couple of my background was really in law enforcement, and then lately as dealing with the oceans and mapping. I went to the United Nations to submit our claims of our extended continental shelf for the Cook Islands, and that is over and beyond our EEZ, about 200 miles. And just to confirm some of the what Maara has produced today, because when doing that you have to make research. So I had to research for a couple of years to actually get what we say, to have an influential language to allow us to be eligible for the claim. And that resulted in a lot of research into voyaging, a lot of research into the people during those days. And today, I see on the program, when we look at Discovery, there's this program called that When the Oceans is Drained. I'd like to see one day, to see how, if this could be done on Mani Plateau, just to highlight a few things here. Because as mappers or cartographers, you can actually claim new land or new troughs or new in any part of the world. The funny thing was, just to confirm a few things that had happened. Weko and I, we found 3 troughs that goes into the island of Kiribati, right on the top. This is way out of the jurisdiction of our EEZ. But it gave us an opportunity to note that our people were in that area. They were fishing in those areas, and they knew where my papa was born, where the fish is, and they were way out of their comfort zone of the island of Mani, because the one captain on the boat said, without saying, they didn't understand what he was saying. He said, "Oh, where you come from?" The guy just stood up and put his finger like this. That way. So they had just come from that part of our Pacific island in Tatu, and they knew that these people were from Mani Kirakau. But just to confirm also how Maara explained how the sea melted, or the ice melted, then covered some of the area. Because it was originally, you could actually walk around the whole globe. But just to confirm that there is a lot of work being done, and this one I'm very happy with. And also to also look at it in a way that I'm going to do that. I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk my arm with your matar. I'm going to do it. And Norunga in the animal Puna, we know that it's always from east to west. About the Taiwan. And maybe I align myself to my colleague here as to the Kumara migration from east to the west, and it's been written, and I think this is a very good workshop, and to also highlight the fact that this is very important for us to be well appraised of this kind of work. So thank you, Mark. Just a comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But also, we worked together in Marama many moons ago. So that's that one. We are still on time. We're still in the question and answer session, so we are actually right on time.
Normally, the toa o tātou ko Maori. Maori, ki teo e noa katoa te tua o Maori. I te puere ranga i te rā. Ea tōna upi mai ruto i tō tātou, ruto i tā tātou akapapa. I tō tātou pae. I e tangata ko Maori.
So Mataira is one of our elders in the Maori community. Thank you very much, Papa. So Mataira is asking about the importance, connections of Maui to that group of thinking, to that, but regarding to Maori. Maui bode well in Maori oral traditions. To this day, there's a family called Maui Rererangi. Maui who flew through the heavens. He's a kamana today. Maui Rererangi kamana is from Tawira Umat. So that family name is still in existence today. Maui Rererangi, Maui the one that soared through the cosmos. So very important. Maui. Also, I think another thing of importance is that because that group mentioned about Maui, that group mentioned about Maui, this group mentioned about Maui, it's just confirming we are but one. So we are connected by many things. The ocean, but also through the corridor of Maui, lassoing the sun. It's the same thing. It's just reinforcing our genealogical, but also our blood ties through and from Maui. Because also on the island of Maui, let me just show if I can see that. On the island of Maui, the story about Maui. Here, there's a place called Hana Raura. Hana is the cave, Rau is to lasso, Ra is the sun. That's the place there. Hana Raura, the cave or the place where the sun was lassoed. It's probably for Maori, it was an oral tradition that was brought before people come to Maori. So Hana Raura is the place that the sun was lassoed, in Maori. And also when Maui lassoed the sun stood for a bit. Here we go. Tu tera. Tu is to stand still. Tera is the sun. So after having lassoed the sun, it stood for a while before it. Tu tera. these are ancient names on Maori. So I think the story about Maui is just reinforcing our closeness at sometimes in the past. So Tutera, the sun stood still. That's where Maui last with the sun. Look, that doesn't exist in the Maori oral traditions. So it's most likely to have happened before and brought to Maui. So that knowledge then is remembered in Maui. And so for Teraya, thank you very much. Any other questions? Or
I just want to add to that. Can you go back to one of the maps, the big map of the Pacific?
with Africa and all that?
Yeah.
Sure.
We've got the migration. That's one with red dot.
This one?
Yeah.
This one will find?
I'm going to get up to point things out. Sorry. I just want to share my theory with everyone. Because as a student navigator myself, I've been researching some of the old stories. My name, called Tuara, and my ancestry goes back to Malaya and Achu and Manahiki, and about 5 of the Cook Islands. So anyway, getting back to this. So in my research, what I tried to do is I tried to go over the old legends and stories and mythology from the Pacific. And I try and look at it from a navigator's perspective. And what I've discovered is that a lot of those old stories have navigational instructions in those stories contained in them, right? Because we didn't have a written language in the Pacific. We had an oral language, orally passed down from generation to generation. So in order to help aid in our memories, we had to contain certain instructions in stories. And we all know good storytellers, right? Some of us might even be good storytellers. And that's how that information can stay around for thousands of years. And that's how we retain that knowledge, through stories passed down. So, when you look at these old stories like Maori capturing the sun, if you look through the eyes of a navigator, you'll see the instructions to do with navigation. Now, like in Micronesia, they had a certain way of talking amongst the navigators that only the navigators understand the directions from island to island, so that the average layperson won't catch on what they're talking about, right? Now, I believe that, in Polynesian society, we did the same. Now, in terms of the legend of Maui capturing the sun and slowing the sun down, from a Western point of view, in astronomy, they talk about the sun's precession or procession. How the sun processes, how the sun moves from season to season, from the winter solstice to the summer, through the equinox, down to the summer solstice. And so the sun's progression through, there's some grid lines here. And the sun moves, from, let's say, up here in the north. When it's up there, it's our winter down here. So that's the winter solstice. And as it moves down to the equator, you get the equinox. Whether it's where you get the spring equinox. And then you come down into the summer. Sorry, I hadn't researched this prior to coming here, so I'm just trying to make it up on the spot. You come down into the summer solstice, and vice versa. Those who study it will know what I'm talking about anyway. So, in the story of Maui slowing the sun down, what he's talking about is that as the sun moves from north to south or south to north, the days get longer or the days get shorter. The daylight is longer or the daylight is shorter, or the night time is longer or the night time is shorter. So so the navigational information is in that legend. If you look for it, that's what that means. That's what I believe it means. Another thing in that story of Maori slowing down the sun is he used six ropes or 6 pillars. Now I also researched into the ancient book of Enoch, and Enoch was taught by some celestial angels, let's say angels, right? And they talked about the 6 portals of wind in the east. And so I have a theory that those 6 portals of wind in the east is how it ties to that legend of Maori with the 6 ropes slowing the sun down. So there was that connection with the wind and the sun. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. So Paul, I knew Paul from the constructions of or the reconstruction of Matmaruatua and also Makamotu. That's how I came to know Paul. When I could, on Saturdays, I took time to go to the boat builders in Highland Park, and that's how I met Paul and the others. So thank you very much, Paul. Paul forgot to mention too, calling names, stars by the name of God, of gods. You can't forget them. That's another reason why those pantheon names are etched onto a star or them, so that you will not forget those names. So thank you very much, Paul. Kikone.
Kia ora. Because you're doing your study, which is fabulous, the thing is, when we teach our kids, we have to be reality, you know? To me, my girl's going to ask me, who am I? I'm going to say, you're tumu te warawara. Your waka is maru maru atua. But because we were born in New Zealand, we stay in the Waikato, we're in their hood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a reality. Our kids out there now won't research way back. They will research your one, but they won't research way back. They want to know now. So to get them into the all that, which is cool, they just got to know where they're going. Hey, the waka's going to go. We're all going to move together. Where are you going to? Because to me, this is going to sound, that's my waka, I'm going to move somewhere. And it's going to come back to whakapapa. And that's how I'm looking at it. And if they want to go on that waka, by all means, because they're going to see the stars out there. And that's your lighter or your street light in my whakaro. I'm just looking at the reality for our kids. My girl's going to ask about 1 million questions. I'm not going to have all the answers. So thank you, Maara, for all the diagrams. So I can show my kids, go to there and look. That's where the answers, what you're looking for.
Thank you. Yeah. So Ma'ine Mari, she's from Arorangi, but now staying in Waikato. She's the one that contacted me first, one of the ones that she has shown interest in coming here. So thank you. One question from the back end, please.
E ara tonu o te ara po, o ti te tata ia girunga te no Homo, ua te rā, ari me kia. Ana ia te rā ki Anaraura, e te kua tū te rā, e prove te ia, te hoto e tana Maori nei a Maori na mau ke mai, e kua tū te rā, ua mū, kare te rā e neke ana, ua tapu ia te rā e Maori i mau ke, e tirea, aka neke o. Tara e wata slow down I tara, haere tarau ke tiri. Wa tapu I tara, o mō tara, e tukuri a Maui ke e, kiri a tara Maui e. So tarau ke tara anga, tara Marama.
So thank you. Tuati. Tuati is the older brother of our Grandmaster Navigator, Peo. So Tuati is saying that the sun didn't move. It actually stood still in Mauke, and that's why the name is Tutera. This, what you see here, is from the Mauke House of Knowledge of 1870. That's when it was recorded. That's when it was written down.
but sure enough, the records, the knowledge was from back here. May
I please have this vehicle JTN 377? It's a Mazda that's parked up to the top here. If you can move your vehicle, please, because it's blocking the driveway for people going down to the ECE as well as the gardens. So if this is your vehicle, JTN 377, it's a Mazda. Can you please move your vehicle now? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. Thank you. We have one last question, because I'm really happy we're actually staying on time. Never before.
Thank you very much for your time. This, sometimes people don't give it up. But all the time you've been with us, you have shared it up. I'm very glad and be happy. I've been working with him. He shared everything. From the tip to the toes. Now we've been cleared. We can see on our map, our ancestors traveled the biggest mass, the more bigger than the land. They never write. They traveled that far today. Then come today and then compass. Our ancestors traveled. We should be praising them. We give thanks to them. And our warriors they sailed too. 1992, I witnessed myself facing the workers coming down in Awana. With Papa Po over here, we're doing the pay. All the workers travel. Micronesia, Ukuria, even paying them coming from Moke. Travel by the stars, by the current. They made it. Our ancestors made it. Even before the gospel arrived, our ancestors prophesied there will be a cloud coming down. It did. Moke in the 1870, Watoto. Our ancestors prophesied it will come. It came. They already know there's a cloud coming. We our ancestors have been there, done that. Marama Tato. Tato Poro, we are very lucky. We have this. And this lady was asking the same thing for our future generation, for tomorrow. We are here today. And the Turturu Yakoto del Tomo. It's a Tamo to the Tuato. They are committed in the Tao Abuero, Takororo, Mokiako. To Eno, Tanatato Koro Mokiako, Tira, the Kitin Tato, the Tirian of the Bach. It's amazing. I don't know to Puna, Tamaroi, from Hawaii came to Moke, then came back. Get okay. How racist is that? I didn't learn. They didn't read the ABC the compass. No smoke, come back, son. Go there. I've seen that land. Go and Poland over there. He came back and we are here today. Then I think Tato. Then I told Mangai. Then I Taokore move. No, the two Maori. They mean the Maori, the Tuato. The two Neya. You know, the it's Tadoki Moa Popo. Ya me take it to go tell that to keep the apitera. Mopitica, the local Yako. Out of a town from it is own.
So, in our day, we grew up together in opposing villages, though. Yes, we keep young it was in So, Inangaro is one of our pillars of our community in Mauke, to do with the chants and calling. He's gifted with that. So if you want some loving, his other name is Inangaro Love. So, and he mentioned about he recited a chant, which means where is the lasso in the east? That's what it's saying. That's on the eastern side there. And that's why Anarona, okay, where the sun was lassoed on the east, and that's where the sun stood still. So these are the good of okay. Our time's up.